you just start by introducing yourself and saying your name and your job?
I'm Mr. John Russoniello. I work at Middletown High School North. I teach English to 10th and 12th graders, and I also teach journalism. One.
So, how have you adapted overall to quarantine so far?
Um, it's been interesting to say the least. I'm sure you get that response a lot. I went out into the real world for the first time in 3 weeks, 2 days ago, to go food shopping at Trader Joe's, and it was a sobering experience, I guess. Like I had gloves on and everything, and I saw people with masks on. So like it's been a little rough. I broke down last week. Uh, yeah, I lost it last Friday. Like I was like, oh, I haven't seen anybody. My job makes me very social. Like I see a lot of people a day. I see 80 students, 100 students a day. It's a lot, and then coworkers, and then people you don't even pay attention to, and then now being locked at home, it's scary. I took my kids for. Oh, if you interview the governor, don't tell him this. I took my kids for a drive the other day. It was non-essential. I'm sorry, everybody, but sometimes it's the only way to get them to nap. So maybe it is essential. And we swung by my parents' house to pick up some stuff, and they were asleep. And that's the first time that she's seen them since as well. And so that was rough because like I couldn't hug her. I couldn't get close to her to give her a hug. So we're trying to take it seriously over here because it's a serious threat.
What actions have you and your family taken to stay healthy and social distance in this time?
We have had no contact with anyone. Well, myself and my two children haven't had any contact, but my wife is still at work. So she's bringing germs in and stuff. And I'm nervous about that. But she just went on. She told her boss that she's not going to be coming in anymore. She's a physical therapist. So she's hands on. And because she's a medical professional, it's deemed essential. So her practice is still staying open, but people were coming less and less for that. And then finally I was able to convince her, and her own research was able to convince her, like, don't do this anymore. So like that helps. But it was really scary. So she would come home from work. She usually works from 8 to 8, 3 days a week, which is really long. So like going back to your first question, like that makes my job twice as hard because I'm only dad 8 to 8. So it's really hard to try and balance everything that I'm trying to get done at the same time. And then, so they cut the evening hours because of the quarantine. So she was off at 6. She would get home just in time for bedtime. So my son would still be up, and he would just want to go give her a hug, and he couldn't do that. So she'd have to like go take a shower. She'd have to go through her whole rigmarole to, cleanse. And then, that's, we haven't been outside. We haven't seen anybody. We just go for walks and we say hi to people when we're walking, but we keep our distance. Can't go to the park. My son's asked almost every morning now for the past week, can we go to Nan and Pop's house? The answer is no. So like that's hard. My dad's still working too. He owns a construction company. So like he's out there in the world. So he's probably one of the most at risk. My wife and him are the most at risk from all of us. So that's, we're trying to limit contact with them.
So, what's the importance of a routine to you, and how does that play in your personal life and professionally?
I think routine is the only thing that's going to save us from this. I don't know if you saw my YouTube video that I made. Did I send that out to your class? Yeah, about routine.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. All right. So that was my tip for surviving this. I made like a non-related to school one. That was establish a routine and stick to it. And then, so by establishing that routine, it gives you an order to your day. And then when you do decide to deviate from it, that day then feels special. So like when you decide like, today I'm going to sit in my PJs. I'm not going to do my schoolwork. I'm just going to watch Netflix all day. That's not your normal. That's your day off. And so that's what makes it work, makes that feel like a break, as opposed to if you never get out of bed and you wear your PJs all day, that is the worst thing you can do for yourself. So try and establish a routine. So I would try and I just touch my face a lot. Good thing I'm home though. Yeah, sorry. But like the routine is good. So I would wake up around like 6:30. I would try and work out. When we had to post by 7:30, I would get up, and that's the only time I had to myself in the morning too, before my wife would go to work. So I'd have to, when we were taking attendance, I'd have to take attendance in that time. I would read through all the stuff that I needed to read through. And then I would have to check my email regularly throughout the day when I would get a chance to sneak it, because I never got a chance to sit down and do like a block of work. It helps. And then, so like I established a routine with the kids. So like we would all play in the playroom until about 10 o'clock, and then I'd try 9:30, 10 o'clock, put my daughter in for her nap, and she would sleep for maybe an hour and a half. and then we would all get up, go for a walk, and then it'd be lunchtime, and then we would play a little bit more, and then try and take afternoon naps, and then watch TV for the rest of the day if we could. So like there's structure to that day that we try and stick with no matter what the weather's like. We try and go outside. No matter what mood they're in, we have to take our naps. Like it's that routine is important.
How old are your kids?
My son is 3, and my daughter just turned 1 on March 1st.
Oh, by the way, I loved your videos. They're very funny. They're really good. And a few of my friends are in your normal literature class. And
yeah.
the one with where you had your baby on your head, that was really good. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a little bit about like school and virtual learning. So, what's your opinion on virtual learning, and like what are the positive and negatives?
I think that the positives are that you can continue some kind of learning. It's definitely not ideal. It's not. And it also so the positive is you can continue some kind of interaction with your kids. Just as ears are in the shot now. The downsides of it are it really shows the kids that take their education somewhat seriously versus the kids that are here for whatever. And because I teach seniors, I see a lot of whatever, like a lot of checked out people, especially now it's second semester. They're the kids that I feel the worst for because they've worked for 12 years to get to this point, and they're not going to have, I don't think they're going to have any kind of conclusion to their high school. Like they're not going to I don't think they're going to necessarily have a graduation ceremony. They're not going to get to do all the fun senior stuff that they usually do. Like seniors are usually done in like late May, like after Memorial Day, like they're done. They start like graduation practice, they start wrapping things up, and they're not going to get to do that. And that's a really sad thing for them. So I feel for them in that. You got plenty of time for that. So you'll probably be back in school by some point, I'd imagine next October. But it's been a learning curve. For me, like I said, I'm kind of inundated with parenting. So like that's really hard to establish a time. So I try and answer emails, but sometimes it's an hour or so between getting to them. It's whenever I get a chance to check them and have a chance to respond. So I might see an email, but it might take me an hour to respond to it, so I try and be quick.
So how's your job as a teacher changed overall?
I don't have to do discipline anymore, so I guess that's good. I don't have to yell at you for having your cell phone in class, which that's your choice anyway. I actually find that the students are using me as a resource more than they were when they had me every day, which I think is a positive. I get a lot of emails about clarity on questions and stuff like that. So it's like, hey, well, I don't get question 7. So like that's not something that students would necessarily have asked me before, where now they are asking me that. So I think that is a positive to come out of it. I do like that one of my biggest things, which I think I said to you at the start of class, was that I'm about student accountability, and like I'm not your mom. So if you choose not to do your homework, it's totally on you. Like it's not up to me. So I think it does help to make kids be more independent and manage their own time. Like you have to make your own routine. But I do also like the way that the school set a regular schedule that you don't have the teachers 24 hours a day. So like if you ask a question at 7:00 at night, I'm not getting back to you at that point. So there is that separation between when school is and when school isn't. I'm more lenient on that because I can't check my email during the day. So I do give kids that leeway, but that's a personal choice that I'm making, not something that I have to do, So the work that I've been getting has been okay, but the thing I miss most is I love class discussion too. So like that's a hard thing. And then doing something through like a Zoom, it's just not the same. It's really not. But it does make the student more independent. So my seniors were finishing up a book, and I told them ahead of time, like if we go on quarantine, your homework is just read the book. Like we're doing a chapter of class, read the book and answer the questions. So it's straightforward. There's no debate about what you have to do, but we don't get to debrief the book the way that we would usually in class. So I try and make YouTube videos to highlight some of the points that I would have talked about, but it's a one-way conversation at that point.
So that you already talked about this a little bit, but how do you think students and teachers are adapting?
This is a model that some students are going to find when they go to college. So like this is the online class model, actually with more work than what you would get there and more structure to it than what you would get. So you would get the syllabus up front in an online class, and you would just know what was due for each class meeting. So like once a week, you'd have to do an essay, or you'd have to read these certain things and then comment on, you have to write a comment and then people would respond to your comment. So it's more structure. And I think that that's good in preparing them for this model of higher education, which is kind of the goal of high school, is to prepare students to be able to tackle challenges of higher education when you get there. And this is one that we really don't cover at all in high school. So it is good. And the online college is a very viable option for a lot of students, especially in our district.
So can you talk a little bit about Quarterlys and late work and stuff like that?
Yeah, I can talk about Quarterlys right now if you want, and how not happy I am about it. I just put together, like you saw, I just put together Quarterlys. So I planned to give everybody a quarterly and then have a later assigned date than today, which is technically the end of the marking period, to give you that little bit of a break. So you could choose to do that whenever you wanted to. And your class is different because it's an elective. So like the requirements for an elective are always less than the requirements for a content class. But that was my plan for everybody. So my other classes, they are way less than I would have assigned them if they were in school. And we just got word last night that you don't have to take them if you don't want to. You can be exempt from your quarterly. I think that's great for you guys, but I think that the timing is very poor. And it's upsetting because some people have already issued quarterlies, have already graded quarterlies, and now they're told at that work to throw it out. Like you don't need to do that. And I think that that's very frustrating from a teacher's perspective. It's the kind of thing that we had no input in as far as I know. Like we didn't get an email, we didn't get a poll, we weren't asked about it. So that bothers me a little bit. And I like, so I'm going to try and be on a conference call next Thursday as well with the district about fourth marking period going forward. And one of the things that I remember vividly from my high school career was when I was in high school, it was the start of 2000s. So they were trying to get in, this is going to be a long story, so strap yourself in for a second. I know you got other things to do. I'm sorry. I'll try and make it as short as I can. They were trying to bring in every World War II vet or survivor that they could, because they were now 80 years old, 70 years old, so they were trying to get everybody in before it was too late. And they brought one guy in who was a Holocaust survivor. And he was telling his story about how at the start of the war, I think he was Polish. I'm pretty sure it was Polish. His country was being invaded, and they had offered to the schools, you guys don't have to take your exams. And all the students protested and said, no, we have to take our exams, because when this war is over, we will be the class that did not take our exams. How will that look when we have to apply for jobs later on? We'll be the only class that you issue a degree to that hadn't met the requirements for that degree. And I think that is I know that it's a third marking period quarterly. It's not an end of course exam, but that idea I think is really interesting in the difference between those two generations. Totally different situations. One's a war. This is a war against the virus, whatever. We're not being bombed, but they sat and took their exam while bombs were dropping on the other side of the city. And I was like, well, it's pretty metal, like that's dedication to your education, because they really saw it as the way to move forward. So I think it's the telling difference between a couple different points of view.
So how do you think this will all affect everyone when we return to school, or if we do?
I think that you guys will realize that you really like school. It's that little thing that sits in the back of your head that you really don't ever you just don't pay attention to. You're like, oh, I hate this place, because that's what you're supposed to do. But school is the place where you exist. Like your identity right now is student. Like you have other things going on, but your main identity is student. And when that's taken away from you, the real stress of the situation is, who am I now that I don't have an identity? Well, we just got real deep for a minute. Yeah, go for it. So I think that there will be an uprising of student participation in school. I guess I'm sure that you notice when walking around the hallways, there's this attitude of disaffectedness among the classes, and how people are like, oh, I hate this place. And I think you're going to find that changes, because everybody, especially because I do that attendance form, and the responses that I get are that, I'm so bored. Like I miss school. Like I miss school. And it's not that you miss. You miss the social aspect of school, but you also miss, like I said, the routine. You miss the confidence in what you're going to be doing every day. You miss that sense of place and purpose. You miss seeing your friends. You miss seeing your teachers, even though you hate them. Like think about a teacher you don't like. You have to have teachers that you don't like in order to have teachers that you appreciate. And then you'll find that you often later, when you get out, you find the teachers you don't like are the ones that you don't like them because they prepped you hard for what's coming in the rest of the world, or they didn't prep you at all and you had to teach yourself. But either way, you learned to be independent, or you learned how to do your subject. So even when you feel like you're not learning, you're still learning. And that's a thing that you're missing right now, is that classroom setting.
Do you have any suggestions or words of wisdom for students during this time?
Boredom is your worst enemy. It's the most useless feeling that you can have. You'll feel impotent and wasted, and just don't be bored. So, do everything you can to find something else. Get outside as often as you can, as far away from people as you can, but get outside as often as you can. Vitamin D from the sun helps a lot. Establish a routine, and read. Don't just watch YouTube videos all day. Don't just play video games all day. Don't just watch Netflix all day. It's going to hurt you, especially when it's beautiful outside. Even if it's cold, put a sweatshirt on and go for a walk. That's it. Put on the Middletown uniform, a hoodie, or 3 of them, and go for a walk.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Thank you very much for having me.